What's something that seemed totally harmless when you were a kid, but now feels super weird or creepy as an adult? Story 1. A woman in her 30s used to let my friends and I in our young teenage years, 12-14, hang out in her house every night. This woman would supply with us with adult beverage, legal limit 18, and cigarettes, at the time legal limit 16, while her under 2-year son slept upstairs with the music on full volume and us not being quiet at all. We only used the downstairs bathroom. No one was allowed upstairs. They would always ask for our older male friends to come round, guys 15-16, and flirt with them a lot. Once my mom found out, she put an end to it. I was furious with her. I didn't understand why I couldn't hang out with this woman. No harm was coming to me, right? Well, my mom told my friend's parents, and nobody was allowed back, and this woman soon moved from the area. Looking back over 20 years later, I can see all the problems as clear as day. The woman's child I feel the worst for. They must have been screaming upstairs and being neglected. There were times we were there well over 8 hours and she'd beg us to stay. The poor child must have been hungry, needing diaper changes, just needing motherly attention, and she was more interested in keeping a bunch of kids in her house thinking she was cool. I don't know if she ever touched anyone inappropriately, but she certainly said inappropriate things. Yeah, if I found out my kids were doing this, I would act like my mom. Answer. I had a similar type of friend who was in her mid-30s who would let a group of us ranging from 13-19 come over and party hang at her place. Her kids had all been taken by child services. I was on the older end at 16-17 at the time and thought it was weird, but I got to hang with my friends, so I didn't really overthink it. I thought it was a mostly safe place because if the 19-year-old had any mental health or had what I now realize bad substances trip, it was easy to call an ambulance to the house. Also, I thought the 19 and 14-year-old were joking about dating until I found out, after I moved, that the 14-year-old had got the 19-year-old pregnant. Part of me was happy to stay with family while my mom was in hospital, and after my mom passed away, I moved in with said family so I could get away from that group. And the fact that the only text I got while I was being looked after by my family while my mom was in hospital was my boyfriend breaking up with me. I'm now in my late 30s myself, and there is no freaking way I'd allow that in my house or my kid to hang in a place like that. Story 2. We rode our bikes behind the mosquito fogging truck that rode through our neighborhood in summer, thinking it was fun. All approved by adults. Found out later that the fog was DDT. Story 3. My mom's grown jerk male friends always wrestling me late at night and her encouraging it, even when he'd yell for them to stop. She'd get mad at me and yell at me for being upset. Then, them creeping in and taking my belongings out of my room when I was asleep and waking me up, telling me I could only have it back if I came out and wrestled them for it. Or chasing me while I ran and hid under my bed, 'cause a grown jerk man was trying to tickle me, even though I was screaming and clearly afraid of him. He'd come into my room and reach under and tickle me that way. I dislike it so much. Edit. M-N-A-G-L. I had no idea this was as bad as it was. In reading these comments of everyone being horrified, and even though I was extremely uncomfortable in those situations and they affected me long-term even today, I never had any idea it was that bad. I just thought maybe I was overreacting, considering it's not even the worst thing to happen to me by far, especially involving my mom. She's never had my back, not once. So in comparison to all the bad things that have happened to me that were done to me, this was absolutely nothing, which is probably why I didn't clock it as anything that bad. Answer. Not enough people talk about how tickling can be a form of abuse. It's a not uncommon topic on R-raised by narcissists because being tickled against your consent feels equivalent to being restrained. It's a total mindfuck because a lot of people, most people, enjoy being tickled or have positive memories of being tickled as a child, but just the thought of it makes me want to crawl out of my skin and cry. Story 4. Scrolls. Adults trying to have intimacy with kids. Scrolls adults trying to have intimacy with kids. Scrolls. Story 5. One time I had a male gym teacher, and when we were doing the yoga unit, he had all the girls position themselves at the front of the class facing towards the boys so that the boys couldn't look at our jerk. Seemed totally normal until the boys told us he was just looking at our jerk himself instead. Story 6. When I was 15, I would Google things like 15-year-old girl naked on the family computer. This was before incognito mode, and I didn't know how to clear browser history, so it's a good thing the FBI never showed up at my house. Answer. Guy here. You would not believe the number of parents I've had frantically ask me about this after finding their kids' search history. It's fine. For one, just about every teenager does it and has since forever. 2. Nobody is worried about kids going through puberty being curious about age-appropriate stuff. It's when the adults go looking for it, it's a problem. And also, these days at least thankfully, typing it into Google isn't going to get them any bad results or on any lists. Also, just saying, if the FBI shows up at your house incognito mode clearing the history isn't going to help you. Story 7. Our assistant high school principal was also a sports coach, and he would walk around and give students shoulder massages. It creeped us out then, but it's even more cringy now. Story 8. When I was a teenager, my 50-year-old neighbor used to call me sexy and invite me over for drinks. I thought it was cool because she was definitely a MILF, but I never accepted because she terrified me. But now, I'm 40 years old, and I know that's pretty weird. Around the same time, I had a teacher that called me an intimacy pot. I've just always had a way with older women, I guess. My wife is 40, and she digs me. Story 9. My music teacher giving me his phone and overall touching me way more than necessary as a 13-year-old edit EEYA. Phone number. Story 10. My 17-year-old friend was dating a 30-year-old guy. Didn't think much of it back then. Today, I'm absolutely horrified. Answer. This kind of thing was so common in high school, in my small hick town, and still is, considering how many teenage girls have gotten pregnant by men in their 20s in recent years. Didn't think much of it then since it seemed to be so common, but it sickens me now as an adult. A lot of parents find out and are okay with it. One friend was dating a married man around 28 back in high school. When he didn't leave his wife for her when she turned 18, she got him thrown in jail as revenge. Mixed feelings on that one. Other girls either broke up with their older boyfriends and moved on, or married them very shortly after high school. Very weird seeing a couple and knowing they've been together since the wife was around 14 usually. Story 11. Walking down the street to a friend's house and being catcalled from boysmen in cars driving by. This happened mostly between ages 11 to 15. I've never been catcalled as an adult woman. Story 12. As a little girl, I didn't understand why skirts had to be down all the time. So at every possible opportunity on the playground or in Sunday school, I would put my dress over my head. I was honestly just doing it to be more comfortable and move freely. I was way too young to possibly understand any intimacy connotations. Story 13. My first grade teacher used to have students rub her feet while she read us a story. We'd gather around on the floor and she'd sit there reading with one kid rubbing her left foot and one rubbing the right. Story 14. Older men making passes at me just thought they were being nice. However, now I know they were pretty perverted trying to make passes at me between ages 11-15. My mom encouraging it. Sick. Story 15. When I was about 11, my parents put me in voice lessons with a guy at my church. He was in his late 20s, kind of a goofy guy, married with a toddler. One day, he took me up behind the large projection screens in the auditorium when we were practicing to show me the speakers or something, and I thought it was cool. We just so happened to run into one of the janitors who was working on fixing something in there. I didn't think much of it. Later on, my parents asked me if he ever did anything inappropriate. I found out he got arrested for raping another girl he was giving voice lessons to. I immediately thought of that day, and I shudder to think what would have happened if we hadn't run into that janitor. Story 16. People over 20 dating minors when I was 14, 15. I didn't think anything of it. Someone in my grade was dating some 20 guy. But now that I'm 20 myself, the thought is really, really weird and super creepy. Answer. When I was a teen, I was part of an online friend group on an MMO. One of our members, she was 13, started e-dating a guy who was 23. We all knew it was extremely creepy, but didn't know how to report it. Finally, another girl in our group tricked 13 Yo into adding her on Facebook, at which point she found 13 Yo's mom's Facebook and told her mom on her. And no, her mom had no idea what had been going on. Story 17. My great-grandmother had a clown collection. An entire room in her house was filled with it. Thought it was cool as a kid, like playing in the clown room. I realize as an adult that this is the stuff of nightmares for some people. Story 18. When I was a kid growing up in the South, we played a prisoner game where we had a bucket of white marbles with a single black marble or stone. You had to close your eyes and reach in, and whomever got the black marble was the prisoner, and they had to run and hide, and all the rest of us had to chase them and try to stop them from escaping. We had cap guns and super soakers. In retrospect, a game that involved a group of all-white kids running through fields and around houses with toy guns screaming, "Let's find the black kid before he escapes," probably would not be advisable these days. Story 19. Parents trying to pair you up with other people's kids. Like last time my parents did that, they were at a delivery and wouldn't stop talking about a girl my age with werewolf contacts because Twilight. Answer. My mom was always trying to set me up with a coworker's daughter. I'd met her a few times, polite small talk, stuff like that, but we never dated or hooked up or anything. Thing was, Mom was always telling me about how much of a problem she'd been for her mom behavior-wise, arguments they had on the phone at work, etc. While the girl was always nice and friendly to me in person, something always fell off about her to me soap. That's why I didn't pursue anything. Glad I didn't in hindsight. Story 20. What about the red pill we had to chew at school to reveal how bad a job of brushing our teeth we were doing in elementary school? Mid-1970s. Story 21. Walking up to strangers' houses and asking if they had any kids to come out and play. Seriously, as a kid, I would walk around the neighborhood and just randomly knock on doors, asking if they had kids, and if so, if they wanted to come out and play. Some of these neighbors even offered for me to come in and have something to drink or a snack. Seemed totally harmless then. Now? Well, I don't think you would get any good looks if, as an adult, you went and knocked on random doors asking if there were any kids to come out and play LOL. Joking aside, yeah, I guess I was lucky nobody decided to kidnap me or eliminate me or who knows what. But great way to make new friends back then. Story 22. When my mom's second husband used to ask me if I had ever kissed or done things with guys when I was in middle school. Story 23. Raging kegger parties in some random field or forest. It was mostly high school kids and the older dude who bought the adult beverage. Everyone got so partied too hard and drove home or slept it off on the cold ground. I don't think teenagers party as hard as the past generation did. Story 24. I don't remember exactly how old I was, maybe 10 or so. My uncle invited me to sit on his lap and I didn't want to. My mother told me I was hurting his feelings and told me to sit on his lap. Looking back, that's not a good lesson to teach a little girl. So what a man wants, even if you don't want to, because his feelings. Story 25. 15-year-old me sleeping with 39, 40-year-old men didn't feel as harmful and creepy back then. It wasn't until I turned 18 and looked back at 15-year-old me thinking that's a fudge child. The older I get, the more disgusted I feel. Story 26. Back when I was 13, I had a DeviantArt account and befriended a guy that was 18. It started out as us complimenting each other's artwork, but then escalated to chatting. We lived in different states, but we never exchanged phone numbers or email, etc. He never once asked to visit me. Many of our conversations were on hobbies and interests in school. He admitted to me he was tragic and severely depressed and had relationship issues with his girlfriend. Our conversations then changed to me being his therapist almost. He complained a lot about his girlfriend, his life, how he wanted to die, how he couldn't find a job, etc. Again, I was 13, 14 giving advice to an older guy on topics I really didn't have much or even any experience on. It really escalated when I posted a picture of myself on the site, and he complimented that I was a beautiful emo girl. As a preteen teen, I thought of him as a friend. He was actually my first online friend. And I am one of those people that really wanted to help someone. As an adult now, it creeps me out that this 18, 19-year-old was complimenting me and asking for advice on serious topics when I was only 13, 14. Story 27. How my dad insisted on being in the room during my medical exams, even into my late teens. The few times I expressed discomfort, he gave me the silent treatment for days after, because it looks weird for you not to want me in the room, like he felt that my not wanting him in the exam room was abnormal, and now the doctor would think I didn't want him there because he was intimacy abusing me. Now, as an adult, I'm like, no. That's totally fudge normal to not want your father in the room when you're getting a pelvic exam. He was controlling and creepy about my body and development, and it fudged me up for decades. Story 28. My middle school had a few gym coaches, and one of them was obsessed with my friend and I. He used to let us skip the activity for the day as long as we sat with him. Usually, he'd want us to sing classic rock songs for entertainment. He never touched us or made us uncomfortable, so we never noticed until adulthood that it was actually pretty weird. Story 29. Senior friends. 24, while old BF repeatedly groped me at 14. I laughed, 'cause cool girl, right? Makes me sad as an adult. Story 30. My math tutor constantly asking me if I wanted to go to a theme park with him and offering me his e-cigarette, but I couldn't tell my mom. Looking back at some of what he said and wanted to do, I'm fairly certain he was trying to groom me. Luckily, I switched schools and soon after tutors, but he was definitely a weird guy. Story 31. Older guys used to always try to talk to me when I was a kid. I'm not talking about guys a few years older than me, but guys my grandfather or father's age. As an adult, I recognize now that those guys were perverts and pedophiles. Story 32. The sheer number of adults who tickled me growing up. Now in my 30s, and I have no idea why adults wanted to tickle me. I have no desire to hug children, let alone tickle them. Story 33. I ate food off some unfinished plates at a restaurant while waiting to be seated with my family when I was maybe 8 or 9 and didn't know any better. And now, I know that's fudge gross. Story 34. My mom always throwing plates and threatening to leave and never come back. Seemed so normal, just another regular, angry day. Now, not so much. Story 35. Whipping out my dong was mischievous when I was a kid. Can't get away with that now, except with my wife. Story 36. Beauty and the Beast. I love the movie. I can sing all the songs. I watched it all the time growing up. Watching it with my kids, and I suddenly saw it completely differently. You meet a guy and he's a total a-hole? It's okay. You can change him. He flies off the handle, orders everyone around, becomes easily frustrated and throws stuff around. It's okay. Inside, he's a good guy and you can change him. Yikes. Yeah, not the greatest lesson. Story 37. Having to dance naked in the woods while all the adults stood around watching me wearing those strange costumes. And the sherbet tasted funny. Story 38. Dating older men. I was 12 dating 46-year-olds, and I thought it was normal. I'm older now, and I now see that those men I was dating were pedos, but at the time it felt so normal. I want to throw up every time I think about it, though. Story 39. Licks for an egregious infraction at school, like smoking in the bathroom. You got bent over a chair with your jerk in the air and then paddled by the principal. Rumor had it a paddle existed with holes in it which made for maximum velocity and hurt twice as bad. It was the 80s. Story 40. My uncle, not by blood but because of marriage, called me his GF. I didn't like it, but no one thought much of it. Fast forward to now, I'm 29, and it really freaks me out. Mentioned it last year when my parents, brothers, and sisters-in-law were there, and all of them were appalled. They didn't remember it, really. My dad said he kinds of remembered it. Anyways, it makes me really uncomfortable to think about it. Story 41. The whole butt-slapping thing they do in sports, even down to the elementary school level. It's fudge weird, and I know it's still commonly done in some sports, at least at the college and professional level. Story 42. Had a friend my freshman year in college that proudly confessed she was dating her high school English teacher. She married him after college. He was almost 20 years older than she was. Story 43. When my adult next-door neighbor who I barely knew came over and cornered me asking for a hug when he was moving away. I was like 5 years old, had hardly spoken with him before, and was the only other one outside. He told me he was gonna miss me. I remember being weirded out at the time. In hindsight, I have a hard time thinking that man had any innocent motivations for needing to say goodbye that badly. Story 44. At 16, worked at Subway next to a Dollar General. Knew 2 of the male employees who were 20. Went to a Blink-182 concert with a friend and ran into them. They offered my friend and me a ride home, and we said sure. Instead, took us to their parents' home who weren't there. Nothing luckily happened, and they eventually dropped us at home. Wild looking back how many rides I took from strangers, and am somehow not on 48 hours. BTW, I am only 30, so this was in 2010s. Story 45. Winning a contest in middle school AP English for having the best black accent while impersonating Cassie's grandma in Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Story 46. Having online friends in their 30s while I was 13-0 who were entirely too invested in my virginity, intimacy life, relationship status, and who made and shared really inappropriate content with me. I haven't really begun to unpack it all, and it's only recently that I acknowledged that it was grossly inappropriate. I'm 30 now. Those same friends lost interest in me when I became an adult. We were all girls' women, and they had a weird thing for corrupting the young ones, to the point that it was, in retrospect, incredibly fudge creepy. Story 47. When I was a young girl, I didn't think it was weird for adult men to ask me about my dating life or history. I was that teen that thought she was very mature for her age. And adults would tell me I was all the time, so it didn't seem inappropriate. Now, the idea of a 20-something-year-old man asking a 14-year-old girl about who she's dating and what she likes is so disgusting. I get if you're a dad trying to stay close to your daughter just to know what's going on, etc., but not some random girl. Gross. I now tell teenage girls all the time, in 5 years, you will be shocked by how much of a kid you are right now in this moment. Adults don't see you as a peer. They get annoyed, but whatever. You gotta keep kids safe. Story 48. My mom let a guy, mid-40s from church, take my sister and I separately to a nearby musical theater about an hour away a few times a year. I was in high school and my sister was in elementary middle school during this time. Sometimes we'd meet his wife at the venue, but he always transported us alone. I don't remember anything untoward happening, but looking back, I don't know why my mom would allow this. I guess being from church made him trustworthy or something. Very strange coming from someone who wouldn't even let me have a boy over with supervision. Answer. This reminds me of something that happened in college when I was around 15, 16. To be fair, the guy was actually sticking his neck out for me. In college, I was a bit of a flunk, but really, really good with computers, hence the name. There was a competition going on, and I was the only one in the class the teachers felt comfortable putting me forward for. I, being lazy and not wanting to do it, kept making excuses. I'm not good enough to do that, I have no way to get there, etc. My teacher, mid-60s maybe, said he will personally drive to my house, pick me up and take me there. All my friends told me to go do it, and I had basically no excuse not to. My teacher did just that, picked me up at 6 in the morning, drove me to the place the competition was held, and drove me home afterwards. Alone. He did say like a day before, don't tell anyone about this, I could lose my teaching license. Looking back, it could have been really bad. I'm surprised my mother let it happen, but he was just a good teacher wanting me to succeed and